Thank you. My name is Ismina Sadiq. I'm undertaking an MA at the War Studies Department at King's College London. I'm currently against the motion, and I found Ula Jabril's argument particularly compelling.
Why?
Because I think there isn't enough discussion about political processes at the moment. I think we are taking too much of a military focus. My question is for Douglas Murray. I just wanted to clarify something that you said. Do you honestly believe that by having Western boots on the ground, we will prevent further terrorist attacks here? And if so, is that a legitimate reason, the protection of Western security interests, to invade another country? Thank you.
The answer to your second question is very simple. Yes, of course it is. Of course it is. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if you get home tonight and you read that you turn on your phones when you leave this place and you discover, say, that 150 people have just been slaughtered in London whilst we've been sitting here? Can you imagine what the response would be if the next day the Prime Minister said, well, it's just not a legitimate thing to intervene in other people's countries, even if our people are killed? We wouldn't expect that. No government would do that. The primary point of government is to protect the people in the country. The idea that that's become a sort of wacky, crazy, surprising idea says more about academia these days than anything else.
But honestly, I'm sorry.
And very quickly, there was one other very quick point. As for the issue of Western troops, look, I think it's been fairly clear. If the Chinese want to go in on their own and destroy ISIS with boots on the ground, I, for one, would be delighted. If the Jordanians and the Qataris and the UAE and Dubai and everyone else decides to send in troops and get rid of ISIS, I would be delighted. My point is simply that if it were to happen that they didn't do that, which is plausible, then it might end up with us having to do it. It may be a last resort, but it would be better than letting it just run and run.
Turkey has applied the headscarf ban. Iran has applied the headscarf ban. It didn't work. It created massive problems. But yes, we all share the same aims with regards to how do we prevent extremism, how do we prevent terrorism, but let's also find more progressive ways forward than chasing women with burkinis.
Douglas, first of all, sorry, Elif, but the burkini ban is a massive diversion. A massive diversion. It was a big mistake for the French state when that happened, I agree, but this is not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is that just up the road, again, a few days ago, 3 men with machetes went through a London street hacking at people saying this is for Allah. Okay? That's our problem. And this is always the way with this. We always have diversions, and some of these diversions we bring upon ourselves. But let me just get back to the main point. We have had historically massive issues in Europe. Nobody who knows anything about our history wouldn't pretend that. But this is a civil war within a religion which was not our war, and it has become our war. It has become our war, and Elif, you are right and wrong. You are totally wrong to say that there isn't some agreement on this. If you are a Muslim and you follow Islam, you believe that the Quran came from God, and you believe that what is in it is at least very hard to run against. And so now we have a situation in a country like this one, where actually the majority of British Muslims want being gay, like I am, to be made illegal now, okay? So we had a nice liberal agreement in recent decades over being gay. And now you import a community which actually thinks not just that they're not on board with gay marriage, but they think it should be made a lock-upable offense. Where does that come from? It comes from Islam, okay? Where do all these things come from? They come from this, and I'm sorry, but it is a much worse problem than we think. Okay, one poll last year showed that 50% of British Muslims would not go to the police if they knew somebody involved in an ISIS-like group was around them. Another poll showed 2/3 of British Muslims saying they would not go to the police if they knew somebody involved in extremist activity. What the hell are we doing? What the hell are we doing in ignoring that?
Okay, Douglas, let me...
Yeah, but this is so
I know,
unfair.
Elise.
This is so
I
unfair.
will. I'm going to let you come back. I just want to press Douglas on a question because I want to know if we accept what you said, and so obviously a lot of people in this room do, and I think quite a lot don't. I want to know what you do with this sentiment because you have just described an issue, a difference with not just the people who went on a murderous rampage in Borough Market, but with Britain's entire Muslim community, 2 or 3 million people. So what are you actually practically saying? You're saying that this is a faith that didn't exist here before, therefore a problem that didn't exist here before. Are you suggesting these 2 or 3 million British citizens somehow have to now leave the country?
No, of course not. Of course
So
not.
what are you suggesting?
The first thing is you admit this issue and you slow down or stop the flow. The obvious thing, if you've got a problem, admit to it and slow the flow. Okay? The second thing is, obviously, you try to work on the people you have here. Obviously. You can't...
What does work on mean?
Well, you hope that over many, many generations things will change. Of course, the problem we all have is a situation like the case of Salman Abedi. This country gave his parents asylum. They fled from Libya. We gave his parents asylum. Now we're working out what his parents actually believed. But actually, then 2 weeks ago, their son goes into a Manchester arena and blows up 22 people, one for every year of life this country gave him. So we could be in a situation where we're saying, okay, the first generation are fine, but we've no idea what their children are going to do. And I would very quickly make this point.
Really quick,
if you
because
want
everything's
to
coming.
see the depth of this problem and a possible solution, see who the most vilified people in the Muslim community in this country, they are the reformers. Every single case, it's the reformers. Okay, and one of the London Bridge attackers last year attacked an imam who's a friend of mine in London. Okay, everybody knows this. The reformers are on the edge of this, and this is the point.
Okay.
The reformers may lose, and that used to be a big tragedy for the Islamic world, and now it's a tragedy for Britain.
Okay, Elif wants to come in and then we're going to questions.
The lady there.
I'm for defeating ISIS. I'm not for having a mass of boots on the ground. My background is that I have an Iraqi family. I am Iraqi. And just following on from Douglas Murray's answer to the lady sitting front right, you said that the government is supposed to protect the people. I completely agree. But would you not say that intervening has caused more violence, terror, and just in general dismay across the world? So in answer to Rilla's question, do I feel safer? No. Douglas Murray, do you feel safer?
Do I feel safer? It's an unanswerable question. The world is a very complex place, has a huge number of factors, a whole range of things that are a problem. My best answer to you is this: the way you will feel safest is if you know you have a government and security services and police and army and others who have your safety at heart. And if they do, then they should be doing everything they can to make sure that the primary threat to people like you and me is destroyed.
Silvana, you're nodding your head, not in agreement.
Because I'm always surprised that certain people feel that they need to give their okay for other people to be or think something they don't necessarily understand. It doesn't matter whether I understand the beauty of physical love between two men. There's no point. You don't need my permission to feel and act. So why does Sam Smith or anybody else who considers himself non-binary needs permission from whoever? All that is up to us is to say, if this is important to you and it does not affect me in any type of way, in any type of negative way, I'm going to respect that. So if you say that you're offended by blackface every year, then I don't need to understand how come you're offended. All I need to do is say, this is not my intention. How can I fix it? And if you say you can fix it by stop acting that way, then that's what I'll do, because there is no point. People don't need your permission to be whoever they want to be.
I think it's slightly more complex than that, if I can say so.
Of course.
Let me give one reason why.
Actually, the Sam Smith thing was significant. Again, sorry to go on about the BBC. The BBC's reporting of that immediately did what he asked, which was that they changed the pronouns. And some people think this isn't a big thing. Some of us do get a bit stuck on this.
I'm only interrupt you just so everybody
Sure,
is up to speed with the sense of instead of he, she, him, her, non-binary people often want to use they, them. So it would be...
So my point was simply that if you haven't actually had this out in public, you haven't actually discussed much of it, it's a bit strange that a major news organisation would slip into saying exactly what a person had asked themselves to be described as simply because they had asked for it.
Sounds like respect to me.
It's not
nothing
the same,
more, nothing less.
It's not the same thing as respect because it's something which we haven't had out. He himself said, I don't know what it means to be non-binary.
So
my suggestion was he should go away and think about it. And in the meantime, we shouldn't all mutilate the language to fit around him.
Hello, my name is Eli Liu. I was a student in University of Piraeus International European Studies. And I won't be very quick, but I am against the motion. And I would like to say that European Union was an ex-colonial power. So most of the countries of the Third World were exploited from us. So now we cannot say that we don't accept them because most of their riches and their wealth were taken from us. And as for what Mr. Voridis said about our values as Europeans, it's our values. Mr. Voridis talked about our values as European citizens, as humans. Well, I think globalization takes them from us and not immigrants. And about the shadow economy, it's the fault of the state control that doesn't eliminate it. And
right, okay, that'll do for the moment. Let's first of all get those points picked up. Douglas Murray, your response particularly to that challenge to you.
Right, very quickly. First of all, if I were Hassan in Syria, I would hope, among other things, that I would help to rebuild my country after the Assad dynasty had wrecked it so completely. I'd hope that I would stay and help to rebuild the country after the devastation caused by that family. Secondly, the gentleman here who said one or two people, the gentleman here said, why are you threatened by one or two people? I'm not threatened by one or two people. Nobody is threatened by one or two people. The figures I gave you showed we're not talking about one or two people. The figure I gave you at the very beginning was that people who identify as white British citizens are now a minority in their capital city. So we're not talking about one or two people, and it is very disingenuous to pretend that I was. Thirdly, the lady at the back, you say colonialism. I'd like to return the question to you. I don't deny the crimes of colonialism, not for a moment. I'd like to ask you a question. How long do former colonial countries have to be punished for then? How long do we have to have our identity erased for? Is there any end limit to it in your eyes, or is it only at the point of complete negation? And finally, why is it that it's only European former colonialist countries? One of the largest and most significant and longest colonial powers in history was the Turkish Empire. Do we do this to Turkey? Do we say to Turkey, you must have your identity erased as well as punishment for the past? Almost every single people in the world at some point has done something historically they could be punished for. But why, I wonder, is it that it is Europeans that we are always being heard, being offered that choice?
Douglas Murray, thank you.